Welcome to part 2 of our flipped lesson. Today we are going to look at word choice questions for the National 5 close reading papers. So, in the exam, you may be asked about how effective you find the writer's choice of words. And there are 4 key steps to answering this question type. You will be familiar with these 4 steps because we did use them in S3 in preparation for our S3 exam. Typically, these questions are worth 2 marks. If, however, you notice that your word choice question is worth 4 marks, then that means that you're going to have to analyse 2 examples of the writer's word choice. Moving on to our strategy, notice that the blue pencil icon is at the top of this slide, and that does mean that you're going to have to copy this into your notes jotter. So the first part of your word choice strategy is identifying and quoting an example of the writer's words. Okay, now that may be a word, it could be a phrase. After you've identified it and quoted, now you have to give the meaning of that word. In English we call that the denotation, and it is basically the dictionary definition. The third part, and the third step of this strategy, is now giving the connotations of the word that you have quoted. Remember that connotations are basically things that you associate with that word. The final part of our word choice strategy is explaining what the word suggests about the writer's ideas or the subject that you're being asked about. Let's do a worked example together. Here is the sentence that we're going to look at. So the man slunk out the back door. We're starting small. Notice I do not have a paragraph. We're just going to look at this sentence. Immediately that word slunk jumps out at me, and I start to think that perhaps this man is a little bit sneaky. He doesn't want people to see him maybe, because slunk means to creep. So he's creeping out the back door. Here's our question. It says, what does the writer's word choice suggest about the man? Well, already that word slunk is telling me a lot about him. It tells me that maybe he is trying to avoid someone. Maybe he's being a little bit sneaky. So I'm going to use the word slunk in my answer. So, thinking about step 1, I'm going to identify my word. Check, I've identified slunk. I'm going to quote it. So here we go, the word slunk. Moving on to step 2, I'm going to give the meaning of that word. Meaning to sneak. Step 3 is about what I associate with the word slunk, and I've already noticed that slunk maybe means that you're being a little bit creepy or sneaky, you're maybe trying to avoid someone, so I'm going to express this as has connotations of creeping or being evasive. Now that just means to evade someone or something out of avoidance. Final part of my question is linking back and explaining what that suggests. So I've written, this suggests the man is cunningly trying to leave without being seen. Okay, I've got my 4 sections there, and basically you get 1 mark for doing step 1, 2 and 3, and you get your 2nd mark for this part, explaining what that suggests. Let's look at another example, this time a little bit longer. So, how does the writer's word choice convey how difficult it was working on the wall? And it's worth 2 marks. Here is our extract. Let's read it together. One of the most miserable punishments, which very often proved to be a death sentence, was to be dispatched into the wilderness to toil on the construction of the wall Shin Shuandi had ordered to be built along the northern frontier of the empire. If I look back at my question, it's asking me about how does the writer's word choice show me that it was difficult, and already I'm picking out and making connections with words such as miserable. Okay, that tells me that it's not a happy place to work, but does it convey difficulty? Maybe not. The next phrase that's sort of jumping out at me is this part here, death sentence. Well, that does tell me that it was difficult, okay, because I guess through working on the wall you could die. Okay, if I keep looking, was to be dispatched into the wilderness. Wilderness, that would also fit in with our question. If I think of working in the wilderness, it's obviously not a nice place to work. Perhaps it could be quite dangerous. To toil. Okay, I think I've made up my mind. I'm going to quote the word toil because that means hard work. And this question is asking me about how difficult it was working on the wall. So toil is probably the best word to choose here. Okay, so structuring my answer. I've now identified the word toil. I'm basically going to follow my steps. So I've quoted toil, given the definition, meaning hard work, has connotations of exhaustion and hard labour. I'd say that I would recommend trying to always give two connotations of your word. It just makes for a more robust answer. The final part of my strategy, it suggests, and that's a great way of always starting that sentence, that the work was very demanding physically. Now notice I have not just said it suggests the work was difficult. It's going to be very hard for me to pick up a mark if I'm just repeating the words of the question, so I've translated that into my own words. So if we look at where I'm getting the marks, I get a mark for this part of my answer. Toil, meaning hard work, has connotations of exhaustion and hard labour. And I pick up my second mark from this part here. It suggests the work was very demanding physically. 2 marks, a very robust answer. Now I'd like you to have a go at using the strategy, okay? Notice again that we've got our blue pencil at the top of our slide. That means you are going to have to write this in your notes jotter. I've actually split this question into 2. So 1A is worth 1 mark, and it says, what is the writer's attitude towards Geordie Shore actors? And then 1B, this is your word choice question, show how the writer's use of word choice illustrates this. Here's your extract, let's read it together. A curious sensation swept over me the other day when I was idly flipping through TV channels and found myself accidentally striding, brain first, into an episode of MTV's Geordie Shore. If you've never heard of it, it's a structured reality programme in which a gaggle of unbelievable idiots are stuck in a fancy house and intermittently hosed down with alcohol. Okay, so if I'm you, I'm going to do 1A first. What is the writer's attitude towards the Geordie Shore actors? And I'm thinking about how he feels towards them. And then I'm going to move on to my word choice question. I'm going to use my word choice strategy. Okay, so those 4 steps after I've picked out a word or phrase that illustrates how he feels towards the Geordie Shore actors. Have a go at answering these questions in your jotter now. Okay, so that's the end of our lesson, and it is time to reflect on lesson 2. Notice that the blue pencil icon is at the top of the slide, and that means you are going to have to write things in your jotter. The first question I'd like you to answer is this. What questions do you have about word choice questions? Okay, so is there anything that's puzzling you? Anything that you would like me to go over? Any parts that you don't understand? Next, how confident do you feel answering these questions? And why? So do you feel very confident answering these questions? Or are you still not very confident? And what are your reasons? Finally, are flip lessons working for you so far? Are they helpful in any way? Do you like this way of working? Because obviously it is a new strategy that we're trialling with this class, and I would like you to explain your answer. So if they're working for you, what's good about them? And if you're not finding them helpful yet, what could we do to make them better? So that's us. You have now completed lesson 2 in our National 5 close reading block, and I will see you in class tomorrow.